We did a collaborative effort with the Divine Nine to bring attention to sickle cell anemia. This is very important because this affects primarily African Americans, and there is a lot more we can do about it. So without further ado, I'm going to just give you a brief overview of sickle cell anemia, and then after that, I'm going to bring on one of the warriors of sickle cell anemia, David Molina. He is the highlight. He's going to tell you his story and what he deals with having sickle cell anemia, and we hope that everyone here will hear his voice and will answer our plea to start donating blood. That's the reason why we're here. So briefly about sickle cell anemia, mammalian blood is produced in our bone marrows, and it contains various elements, various cells that each have specific functions. There's the white blood cells. Along with other mediators, white blood cells help to fight infection throughout your body. Another blood product is platelets. Along with clotting factors, what platelets do primarily is to help one to stop bleeding if the person has an injury. And lastly, the last main factor would be the red blood cells, also known as hemoglobin because they're generally combined together. And the red blood cells are very, very important because what red blood cells do, they take oxygen throughout the body and deliver oxygen to every organ. Without oxygen, that organ dies. That's how people have strokes. That's how people have heart attacks. That's how many people end up with amputations. If they have poor blood flow, it's because oxygen is not getting to that organ. Now, the term anemia specifically means a deficiency or a dysfunction of the red blood cell. And the red blood cell generally is oval. It's shaped like a hockey puck. Obviously, it's much smaller, but it's shaped like a hockey puck. It's oval, and the center is concave down. It's a little flattened in the center. That is the perfect shape of a normal red blood cell. The red blood cell combines with hemoglobin, and hemoglobin takes oxygen. Hemoglobin is more or less a vehicle. So it takes oxygen, it Ubers oxygen around the body to your brain, to your heart, to your liver, to your kidneys, to all of your organs is what hemoglobin does. So whenever there's the term anemia, it specifically is speaking about a dysfunction in that system. That Uber is down. It is not working properly. So therefore, oxygen needs to get around. However, there's not enough vehicles that are on the road to get the oxygen around in a simplistic form. Sickle cell anemia is a specific genetically inherited disorder of one's red cells in which these cells have a different shape. They become sickle or they're shaped like bananas. Not 100% of them, but over time, this occurs. Now, the life of a red blood cell is about 120 days from when it's produced inside of your bone marrow, and it circulates in your body about 120 days, which is 4 months. And that's on the normal. And however, they generally maintain their shape for those 120 days, able to carry oxygen throughout your body. In a warrior with sickle cell anemia, as I stated, it becomes banana-shaped. When it's shaped like that, it can no longer carry oxygen throughout the body, which is needed. Now, sickle cell anemia, it afflicts approximately 100,000 people in the United States, and predominantly they are African American. There are some that are Mediterranean American that will have it, but these are much smaller percentages. And there's other disease states or conditions that mimic sickle cell, such as thalassemia and other anemias. But sickle cell anemia is in a very, very special category. So this is a functional red blood cell deficiency, sickle cell anemia. And so therefore, the cell can no longer carry oxygen throughout the body, as I had stated. Now, for a person to be born with sickle cell or to have sickle cell anemia, as I stated, it's genetic. It is an autosomal recessive trait. What that means is that you need 2 of the genes in order to have sickle cell anemia. So you can have 2 parents that may not know that they are carriers because it's autosomal recessive. That means if you only have one sickle trait, one trait, which is a trait, you will not have the condition because you need two of the genes together to manifest the ailment. So with sickle cell anemia, you can have two people having a child. Neither may not know that they have sickle cell trait. And when you have two people with the trait but not the disease, 50%, that's statistically, 50% of their children will have sickle cell trait, 25% will have sickle cell anemia, and 25% will not be carriers at all. And that's just statistical analysis through genetics. So with this right here, sickle cell anemia, it adversely affects the organs of the sickle cell warriors. As I stated, the job of hemoglobin is to take oxygen throughout the body, but it cannot do that if it forms into the shape of a banana. Now, the treatment for sickle cell crises, which many times causes pain, shortness of breath, some infections, because the sickled red blood cell, it blocks the flow not just of oxygen, but also the other blood products that are there for healing and to stop bleeding as well. So the treatment includes oxygen, oral and IV hydration, as well as blood transfusions. The first two are relatively easy because IV fluids, oral fluids, and oxygen in a hospital are very readily available, and it is ubiquitous. It can be used in anyone. You don't have to do any special tests on the IV fluid. You don't need to do any special tests on the oxygen before it's administered. The blood transfusion part is difficult. Now, most of you probably already know that the blood typing, generally speaking, is called ABO. You have people with blood type O negative. That is the universal donor. That means anyone can receive blood from someone who's O negative, on the surface, because it's going to get a little bit more complicated. Then we also have AB positive. That is a universal acceptor. That means they can get blood from anyone, whether the person is O, A, B, or AB, if you're AB positive. Again, O negative is universal donor. AB positive is universal recipient. So with this, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the part we know. So we start to think, hey, you know what? As long as enough people have the type of blood that a sickle cell warrior needs, A, B, or O, then they'll be fine. It's more complicated than that. In the human blood cells, our red blood cells carry over 600 antigens and proteins. Now, African Americans, of those proteins, which is very specific, African Americans generally have, there's antigens C, E, and K. African Americans are generally negative for C, E, and K antigens. However, other parts of the population, European Americans, perhaps Asian Americans, they each have their specific antigens that are more predominant with them. But those antigens, they're generally positive. So if you take a sickle cell warrior, and if he or she has blood type A, and they're just given A from a general pool, there's a great chance that that blood type will have a positive C, E, or K antigen. Over time, a sickle cell warrior, many of them need 100 units of blood per year when they have a crisis. So over time, the more you give someone something that is not compatible, fully compatible, the greater chance our body starts to build up antibodies. When we build up antibodies to these, we start to reject. That means that blood does not last in the person with sickle cell anemia as long as it should, and then they have to keep more and more transfusions, and there's a greater chance of rejection and other complications. So that's why we're here today, is that we are making a petition for African Americans, Latino Americans, Caribbean Americans, those of African descent especially, to get out there, get the word out there, and try to get people to donate blood, because that becomes very, very important for us as we try to eradicate or minimize the complications of our sickle cell warriors. In closing, African Americans are nearly 15% of our population in the United States. However, the blood bank has less than 5% of our blood. That is why it is more likely that a blood donation is not going to come from someone that has blood that is much more compatible to someone with sickle cell. There's a greater chance they're going to build up antibodies and have complications. We can help solve that problem. We are enough. We have to stop always looking at things through a myopic view. And I know historically there are reasons why African Americans, why we don't trust science, we don't trust the medical community. There are reasons, valid reasons, and I'm not here to try to say that those things did not happen historically, but this is a condition that affects us. It affects our people, and it's something that we can do something about by donating blood. So I'm appealing to each of you today to try to get 3 friends. We're going to have a blood drive here at this church on September the 30th. That is 20 days from today. September 30th, there's a blood drive. On the flyer, and I believe there will be a QR code passed around, where you can easily register to donate blood. And with that right there, it is very important that you self-identify as African American, because your blood, when we donate blood, and when I identify myself as African American, it gets tagged by the blood donating collectors, by the collectors, with a blue tag. What that is not something nefarious that they're trying to clone Tyrone or anything like that. What that is that blue tag says that this blood is readily available for a sickle cell warrior because it came from someone with like blood who does not have sickle cell anemia. Therefore, this blood will circulate in his or her body at a much longer period, carrying oxygen to his or her organs. That's why it is very important to self-identify, because it is not mandatory. They do not list the blood as, oh, this is coming from a black person, Latino person, male or female. It will just get a blue tag on it saying that this right here is most likely, statistically likely to be compatible for someone with sickle cell anemia. So again, I implore you to please register to donate blood. We're going to have an interactive Q&A session. We really want to hear from you what your questions are about all of this. But before we get to that, I'm going to introduce my patient, David Molina. He is a sickle cell warrior, and David is going to tell you his story. No matter how much I may know about anemias, there's nothing like getting it from the mouth of someone who has lived this from day one. He was diagnosed almost at birth. Thank you so very much, and let's have a round of applause for David.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank everybody for coming out, show your appreciation. And, this may help not just me, but, I can be your nephew, your grandson, your son. So, I'm not the only person that's going through this. It's a lot of people in the world that goes through it. This is my first time actually speaking about it. I never really spoke about it to anyone because, I've been dealing with it all my life, and I never really like talking to people about what I go through. I just deal with it myself. But I'm gonna just give you a little background of me. My name is Dave Molina. I'm 29 years old. I'm African American and Puerto Rican. I was born with sickle cell anemia. My mom had the trait and my dad had the trait at birth, and neither of them knew that they had the trait. So when I was born, the doctor told them that I was diagnosed with sickle cell anemia. I'm born and raised in Newark, New Jersey, where the population is predominantly African American people. I deal with a lot of pain. Like when I go through my crisis, I have real crucial bone pain to where I can't walk. I can't really function normally. It's excruciating pain. The pain is unbearable. I can't even explain the type of pain I go through. But it prevents me from a lot of stuff. I worked all my life. I went to school. I went to college, and even jobs now. Sometimes I might get sick during a job, And they can't just fire me because I have an illness. So I bring in doctor notes and things like that. But I think that some of the jobs, like I recently got laid off from one of my jobs. It's not because of my work ethic, because I work. I'm a hard worker. I come to do my job. That's basically it. But I felt like my last job, and for example, they laid me off not because of my work ethic, because I think it's because of the tardiness that I have to be out and be in the hospital, and I'm most of the time I'm sick to where I can't come in and do my job. But like I come out here to certain hospitals and I get treated as if like I'm a drug seeker, like I just want drugs, and I don't even like drugs, to be honest. I don't even like taking the medication I'm supposed to take for my pain. But when I come to these hospitals out here, they really lack a knowledge of what sickle cell is and how to treat people like me. So I go in there and I'm in pain. I'm in excruciating pain. Like I can't even explain it. Like I done seen people stabbed, shot, and the pain that it look like they're going through, I feel like that's the same type of pain I'm going through. But it's not the same, obviously. But I get treated as if I'm a drug seeker, and I don't like it because I'm in pain. Like I'm not here for the drugs. Like I'm here to get treated for my illness. And they really lack of knowledge because it's predominantly it's not a lot of black people or doctors just don't have that knowledge of how to treat people like me with sickle cell. So it's a lot. It's real difficult for me. When I was younger, I was in and out the hospital a lot. I can't really remember the pain type, but I know it's pain. But now it's like I'm constantly in the hospital, and now my pain is getting worse to where I need blood transfusions. And honestly, the only thing that helps is blood transfusions. And the pain medicine, it lasts for here and there, but it's not helping me in reality. So I just wish you guys all at least try to donate blood for people like me. And it's kind of difficult for me to speak about it because I deal with it. Nobody really knows what I go through besides people that deal with the same type of pain I go through. I met one person, a female. She has sickle cell, and we talk, and everything is like similar. Like the pain she says she go through, I go through. It's the same thing. I never really had anyone to talk to about the pain I go through. Only the people who knows is the people like me that goes through it, and it's not a good sight. Like it's very hard for me. Even now, like this morning, I kind of had a little episode where I thought I wasn't gonna make it, here to speak to you guys about what I go through and people like me that go through the same thing. But I had to come and make sure that everyone at least hear my voice and know what people like me go through. But that's really it. It's kind of a little shy, but I appreciate everyone for coming out. Thank you for everybody up here on the board. It really means a lot to me. So I appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What we amassed here was a dream team of the Pan Hell. Let's give them a hand. To my left, we have Yoshi Donato. She's the president of the Monmouth Ocean County Pan-Hellenic Council. She will be giving us perspectives as an educator, and she's a member of Zeta Phi Beta sorority. Give her a hand. We have Evander Duck Jr., MD, physical medicine and rehab, a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Let's give him a hand. Dr. Ginger Massey Moriali, MD, OBGYN, Neptune, a member of the Distinguished Ladies of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. Give her a hand. And also, the protocols have been established for the patient, David, who gave us a fantastic job, as well as Dr. Roper. But our moderator will be Dr. Avonia Richardson Miller, Senior VP, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Hackensack Meridian, a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. And I'll turn it over to her. Let's give her a hand.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for those introductions. And David, thank you so much for sharing your story. and from the experience of your walk in life. And to hear you say so much about how you're treated when you show up in hospitals as drug seeking. At Hackensack Meridian Health, we've had a focus on unconscious bias training and how that impacts the care and the outcome of our patients. And in the course that we developed that all of our team members have to take, we included a scenario for sickle cell, particularly that addresses that whole bias of thinking that sickle cell patients are drug seeking when they show up in our emergency rooms. So the fact that I heard you speak about that several times in your speech made me feel good about the training that we're putting out there, and you saying that many of the other doctors and clinicians are not aware. So I hope that this training that we have out will begin to change that bias and that culture if you've had that experience at Hackensack Meridian Health. But it's not a one and done. We're continuing to work on that as well. And our goal was to have all of our workforce trained this year with that course. And so we've been diligently working on it. We're about 90% trained at this point. So, okay, it's my pleasure to be here to moderate this esteemed panel discussion today. Again, as Dr. Roper said, this is an interactive panel discussion, so that means that we're looking for you to submit your questions. Bill Phillips is in the room. You'll be taking the questions here from the audience that are in person, the participants in person, and then I believe we have people joining us virtually, and you have the opportunity to submit those questions via chat, right? Okay, so we will we'll get started with our questions here. So how about we go to Dr. Roper first for the first question? So question for you, Dr. Roper, is I have diabetes. Can I donate blood?
Okay, well, that's a great question. The person asked, would they be able to donate blood and they have diabetes? So most medical conditions, you can donate blood as long as it is under control. So a person with diabetes as well as high blood pressure, and I might as well throw in there, even if you have sickle cell trait, you can also donate blood. The things that exclude one from donating blood is if you have sickle cell anemia or if you have an active anemia of another type. That means if your blood count is too low to donate, you cannot donate. But for most medical conditions, if you're under control, you can donate blood to the blood bank.
Thank you. So it looks like most of us are included. So from DEI, I like to hear that. In David's story, he mentioned that he was diagnosed with sickle cell from birth. So all through your educational experience, all through your life, you've been battling this. I think this is a great question for Dr. Yoshi Donato. I did.
Thank you.
So how does sickle cell disease affect education?
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be amongst all of you this afternoon. In education, just like any other disease that might impact a student's learning, they may need special accommodations throughout their day. They may need access to bathrooms. They may need water bottles. They may need extra time to get work accomplished. Those types of challenges. They might get, they may need to leave class to get to the next class, in a timely fashion if your hallways are crowded. So that's the type of thing that may impact the student that has sickle cell. And I'd have to say, like, our community, we just have to be advocates for our young people. If your student is diagnosed with sickle cell or anything else, it's a conversation we need to be proactive sooner than later in order to support students' learning so it isn't further interrupted or impacted.
Thank you. Before you pass away your mic, I'm going to add to your question over here. So David spoke about with his work experience having to miss so much time from work. So we know that in education there are policies around attendance, right, and tardiness. So any advice you have for parents, and how do you work through that?
Again, it's sometimes some of the challenges are, at least in my experience, is that we don't want folks to know. But we can't support students with things we just don't know. And so it's better to have those conversations, have the medical documentation ready. We understand that. And that's how we take care of our young people. It has to be a collaborative conversation with teachers, counselors, and even parents. If you don't want, teachers to know, then you speak to that trusted guidance counselor and say, hey, just like to keep that in-house. And there's a way to communicate that so that they don't necessarily have all the particulars, but you just know there's a special instance where this young person may have to leave early or may have to have more access to the bathrooms.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. It definitely does take a village. So all that you can learn on how to empower yourselves and advocate for your family members and loved ones. So we're going to go to Dr. Duck. What is the role of a rehabilitation specialist in the care of patients with sickle cell disease?
Yes, thank you. Nice to be here and see everyone out this afternoon. Rehabilitation medicine focuses on patients after an acute event occurs. So the patient has a sickle cell crisis. They go to the hospital, x-rays, MRIs, addressing problems of the blood, pain, what have you. Now, unfortunately, what happens is after the patient is stabilized, sometimes they're sent right home, but they're not ready to be home necessarily. There's a lot of other things that need to be considered. Are they able to walk around their home safely? Is their pain controlled adequately so that they can have a substantial way to live? So a patient can be transferred to a rehabilitation facility, that's a hospital or a subacute rehab facility. Now what the physiatrist does, a rehabilitation physician is called a physiatrist, is we sort of are the team leaders with physical therapists, occupational therapists, neuropsychologists. So a sickle cell patient comes into the rehabilitation hospital. They're stable from a medical standpoint. I mean, we don't have to worry about things going in the wrong direction, but they're not necessarily at a point in time where they're ready to go home and be functional. So they come in, they would be getting physical therapy, occupational therapy, pain management. Sometimes the pain management is not adequate. It's been pointed out here that many sickle cell patients are looked at as drug seekers. And I've seen this. And it's not the case. They really are in pain. So a rehab physician can also order pain medications and monitor the patient during their rehab stay to make sure that they are able to function safely and their pain is controlled. If your pain's not controlled, you're more likely to fall and what? Hit your head, fracture a hip. So pain management is very important. And then after the patient, after 2 or 3 weeks in rehab, you write up full reports, and that gets sent to Dr. Roper, for example, who then can say, okay, patient A went to rehab, and here we are. This is the medication level that worked for that patient. This is the physical therapy that worked. We can, question them and make sure they're continuing to do the home exercise program that they were taught. So that's sort of a general answer as to how a rehab doctor fits into this medical scenario.
Well, seems like a very critical role. Yes. David, you want to speak from your experience?
Just to go back on what he said, I have experience to where I've been hospitalized and, the pain's been treated constantly, but I also have times where I've been discharged knowing that I'm still not stable enough to, go home and function correctly. So I experience a lot of times where I'm sick and, they'll discharge me and a few hours I'll be right back in the hospital, and it's like where does this end to where, I'm telling you that I'm still sick. I know I'm not I'm not good enough, I'm not suitable to go home and function correctly. And it's been a lot of times where I have to come right back to the hospital because I'm still in pain. So I feel like I don't know on these doctors' behalf, but I feel like they need to take consideration into, me voicing my opinion, letting you guys know that I'm still currently in pain. So just to go on that, it's like I've experienced that as well. As I'm still sick, I'm still in pain, and I'm being discharged, and a day later or maybe a few hours later, I'm coming right back to the hospital. It's just I've experienced it so much, and I felt like nothing has nothing's changed. So I don't really know where does this end, or where do these people, you know, understand, or because I feel like that's where the drug seeking come in, because they feel as though I just want to, be dosed up, keep being dosed, and that's not the problem. I'm currently in pain. I'm still in pain. So if I'm still in pain and you guys are discharging me, I'm telling you, I don't feel comfortable going home, because I know myself, I know my body, and my mom witnessed this multiple times to where I'm being discharged and I'm telling them I'm still in pain, and I wound up coming right back a few hours, maybe an hour later. So, you're absolutely right about what you said, so I just wanted to point
Follow
that
up
out.
on that. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. If that happens to anyone, try to just be assertive respectfully and say, I would like for a rehabilitation physician to evaluate my son, daughter, myself, and make a recommendation as to whether or not they think the patient would benefit from a stay at a rehabilitation facility. Sometimes that can be helpful. And, am I taking questions now? I see somebody raising their hand.
I guess we can, yeah. The
I'm
bill
not sure.
can go to, this gentleman here has a question. Well, shall I?
I can't hear him. Yeah.
I would like to let everybody know that there's a piece that has not been addressed. You have to educate the family. My wife succumbed to sickle cell. I watched her pain for years. I mean, this excruciating pain. And the young man was saying, I used to say that I would go to her, take her back to the hospital for a 10,000-mile overhaul, because that's what they thought that was happening. And the drugs that she had to, sustain the pain didn't do anything. The medical facility at the time, and I was in Gießen, Germany, and they didn't understand what sickle cell was. They had no idea what it was. But the family, when it comes to understanding the pain that child or adult is going through, you can't dismiss it. It's not, I just, like he said, just give me some drugs and let me go. But to live with a person that had sickle cell, SC, for 20 years before they succumbed. My wife, when it came to our son, she never went into labor. She went into convulsions, and they had to take the baby. Because of that, I became a board member for the New York Sickle Cell Foundation, because I needed to find out what I could do as a family member. And when you sit there and you watch this person in excruciating pain, the bones would be aching. This gentleman, you know what I'm talking about. You know exactly. But if the family is not educated to help this individual through this crisis, you can't dismiss, their feelings. And if you have to take them back and forth to the hospital, it's not a joke. When I was pledging 37 years ago, my line brother had sickle cell. And as soon as we got off that pledge set, we took him straight to the hospital. I've had friends of mine who were sicklers, or had friends that had the trait, and this will say what they don't understand. My friend of mine, who was, one of my fraternity brothers, he wanted to become a court officer, and they were going to deny him because he had the trait. He called me at the Sickle Cell Foundation in New York, and I went down and talked with the medical board to let him know, you can't deny him because he has the trait. He does not have the disease. I had to educate the doctor. What was sickle cell? How did it affect the body? Because he did not know. There are many doctors out here. They might be good in their field, but they have no idea what sickle cell is about. So if you're going to educate, your family members and so forth, even you have the doctors that want to release you, I guarantee you that at least 60% of them don't know.
Thank you so much. We definitely feel your passion, and thank you for sharing those stories. And Mr. Phillips couldn't get there fast enough, but he's actually taking the questions down. And I just want to thank you for sharing the story of your wife. Thank you, Dr. Buck, for following up, Dr. Duck for following up on what David was saying about the gap in the continuation of care for him. And what I heard from you and from the gentleman that just spoke is so very important. I'm a heart survivor, and when I speak for the American Heart Association, my one thing is always, you have to be the CEO of your own health. So you have to advocate for your own health, and those people who are your loved ones should be co-advocates for you. And so Dr. Duck gave you the instructions on how to do that when you're seeing that discontinuum of care begin to manifest itself. So thank you so much for that. Yes, Dr. Phillips, are you taking the question? Okay, we're going to a different process now. Who has the question? She has. You have a question too? Okay. Okay. Okay, we changed the process a little bit, but we can pivot. Yours is not on.
Quick question. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the list of those conditions that are considered part of the ADA, American Disabilities Act. Sickle cell is not on here. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason why that has not made it on to the ADA?
Yes. If it's not there, then I think that there needs to be greater advocacy around it, right, in order for it to get there. So today is a great day to, we're starting this dialogue, as the gentleman said before, that others have to be educated, families have to be educated. I want to thank Dr. Roper for partnering with the American Red Cross to really start that here. And I think that we are here as the Divine Nine, and so maybe that's something that we rally around, because this is definitely affecting our communities. And when you bring the masses together to advocate for things and raise awareness, that's when you get change. So, because it absolutely seems like it should be on that list. So, questions for you, Yoshi. Then, what happens in the case with special accommodations at a school if it's not on the list of disabilities?
So we, in education, we don't need a list per se, like
okay.
coming from the ADA. We just need the medical documentation from the doctors into the schoolhouse. And I would just like to add, when we talk about advocating, I work in a school district that is, we're the minority, and what I do see is that other folks are really good at advocating for their kids' rights and education. There are 504s and IEPs to support your students. Some folks, and I've been at the table as the only person of color in leadership in my building, and they worry about the stigma. And I've had to say to them on the side, hey, I understand, but there's also a stigma if your student gets left behind. Let us help. Let us partner with you. That's really important. We don't want our young people left behind. We want them to be able to compete at the best and highest levels of learning. And so we have to push forward in advocacy for our young people because others do. There's a place for us at the table to eat. We just have to, and just like the gentleman said, our communities have to get the information. And sometimes, truth be told, no one's going to give us anything. It is about connecting. I have seen parents come in with advocates because they just didn't know, right? And that's great. But that other person helps them navigate a system where they can make sure that their learning isn't delayed or denied. 504s and IEPs support when students have any type of illness that may take them out of education, that gives them home instruction if they can't come to the brick and mortar, so the staff can go to their homes or meet them at the public library so that there is no longer a lapse in their learning.
Thank you for that response. And I think, so it seems like reminded me a little bit in corporate with human resources where there is also the similar thing where it is your physician, how they write up to advocate for you to get a workplace accommodation. Did you want to stop? My next question was going to go to this young lady here, and then I have a question for Dr. Moriali. Yes.
Okay, I think this is on. Hello, my name is Electra Willis, and I am a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Speak up? Okay, absolutely, because actually, David, I am talking to you right now. As a member of that discharge planning team within the hospital, I am a social worker. That is exactly what I do. So what I would like to tell you is that advocate for yourself in the sense that you ask for the discharge planning social worker. It is my job to make sure, and especially as also an employee at Hackensack Meridian, that I make sure that my patients have a safe discharge, right? A safe discharge means that if they need to go to, as Dr. Duck said, a subacute rehab, if there's home physical therapy that is needed, whatever the case may be, that those things are in place for you. We are here for you. We are the bridge between you and the doctor, okay? So I just want you to know there is an advocate there. There is a patient engagement specialist. There is the discharge social work, discharge planning social worker. So I just want you to know that because I heard you say what happens when I'm ready to get discharged from the hospital, and I'm basically telling them I'm not ready. We're the ones that will then go to that doctor, go to that medical team in our MDRs, multidisciplinary rounds, and we'll tell them, you know what, let's look at this again, okay? So use that social worker.
Thank you so much for that. So valuable to know the resources that are available to you, and I can't reiterate enough to be your own advocate. I'm here today because I was my own advocate. Okay, so so going to you, Dr. Moriali, your question is, in David's story, he shared that he was diagnosed at the time of birth and that neither of his parents knew that they had the trait. So question for you is, what test is done to check for sickle cell anemia in pregnancy?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me, inviting me, Dr. Roper. So the test that is done is a blood test called hemoglobin electrophoresis. It's a typical blood draw, and that'll let you know what type of hemoglobin you have. As Dr. Roper so eloquently talked about hemoglobin S and hemoglobin A and normal hemoglobin, this test will tell the mother if she's a carrier or she has the trait or if she has the disease. What we recommend is that you do preconception counseling. If the mother doesn't know, where they test both the mother and the father. That way they will know if they're a carrier, meaning they have the trait, or if they have the disease, and then they can be referred to a genetic counselor who can explain to them more in detail what their risk is to their unborn child. So, for example, if the mother has sickle cell disease and her husband or significant other or partner is normal, that mother can only pass that abnormal gene. So that infant will always be have the sickle cell trait, okay? If the mother has the trait and the father has the trait, there is a risk that the baby will either have the disease, 25%, or have the trait 50%, or be normal 25%. So it's very important for our community, women of color, to know that have that counseling done and have the test done if they're concerned, especially if they have a history of it in their family, to be tested for that. And I just want to address the alpha brother who was talking about his wife when the delivery and said she was having seizures. I was going to lead into the risk factors for a mother who has sickle cell disease. Because it's important for you all to know this. You can talk to your family about it if you have a child or who's a female who's going to be pregnant. So what the alpha brother was talking about, his wife actually had something called eclampsia. So eclampsia is a condition where something called preeclampsia that increases the mother's blood pressure, and it makes her have a seizure. It affects all of her organs. It can affect her brain while she had the seizure. It can affect her liver and other parts of other essential organs. So that's what happened to your wife. She had eclampsia. That's a very high risk factor for someone who was pregnant who has sickle cell anemia, among other risk factors as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to go back to a question. This is a question that came in from the audience. It has been addressed a couple times by you, Dr. Roper, and by you, Dr. Moriale, and I think we have an opportunity if you can break this down in a little more layman terms. So like Denzel Washington says, he's my favorite actor, he says, explain it to me like a 5-year-old, right? So the question is, can you explain the difference between the full-blown disease and the trait? Explain it like we 5. Which one of you can break it on a preschool level?
I guess the mic stops here. Dr. Moriale pointed at me. So the difference between sickle cell anemia, which is the condition, and sickle cell trait, a person with sickle cell trait many times does not have any symptoms at all, except under extreme stress. So if the person was trying to run a marathon up in the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado, but that will affect most of us, even those of us without the trait. So most of the time, someone with the trait, that's why they'll go through life without ever knowing they have the trait, and you can have 2 people with the trait having 25% of their children having the condition. So having the trait usually is not noticed, except if the person had a test, as Dr. Moriale stated, the sickle cell prep or hemoglobin electrophoresis, and that will determine what you do have. And if the person has the condition, it varies. Sickle cell is a varying disease. It is something that some people suffer many times. I know, David, you're in the hospital approximately every 2 months or so, needing a transfusion. There are others that may be in the hospital once every 4 months, twice a year, and some more often than David. With the treatment, I'm going to go ahead and give a plug again for donating blood. A person who's getting proper treatment could live a long, healthy life. I have another patient who is 80 years old. He has sickle cell disease. It does not mean that you have to have a shortened life expectancy. But again, that's something we have to do. We have to stock the blood bank with our blood. On this September 30th, you must self-identify, and therefore we can help all of them.
Thank you. Hopefully that clarifies that. So if I'm understanding it correctly, you're not going to have the disease unless the mother has the trait and the biological father has the trait. So that when the egg and the sperm both must carry the trait, and then you have a possibility of having the full disease, right? Or just being a trait.
If that particular egg and that particular sperm both have the trait, that child will have the trait. It's just that a person who's a carrier, because each person has two genes, every gene, you have a gene from your mother and from your father. So if the male has one normal gene and one abnormal gene, and then the mother has one normal and one abnormal, 25% of their children statistically will have sickle cell anemia. 50% will be carriers. I'm going to segue into this. It is very important, and I'm an advocate for this right here. Knowing is power. Knowledge is power. I believe by the age of 12, every African American should know their status long before they decide to conceive. And, you know, I'm not saying that two people with the trait should not marry, should not conceive, but you should at least know what the statistics are and make your decision. My son and I, we're going to work on an app, but I can't reveal that yet, but we're going to work on something for sickle cell. So I'm going to just leave that alone.
Oh, that's great.
Quick question, Dr. Rupa. I have a 17-month-old daughter, and she has the trait. So her mom didn't have the sickle cell trait, but being as though I have the full bone disease, she's automatically going to be diagnosed with the trait. Is it possible for her to experience pain like I have?
Great question, David. So because David has sickle cell anemia, so that means both of your genes are sick. You had two sickle cell traits coming together, so you have sickle cell anemia. So that means 100% of your children, if your mate has both normal genes, but 50% of all of your children will have the trait at the very least. If you decide to have children with someone who has the trait, because you actually have the condition, 50% of your children will have sickle cell anemia. So, but 100% of your children will have the trait. But your daughter should not experience what you've experienced because she only has the trait. She will not know. She only knows she has a trait because she knows that you have sickle cell anemia. Even without testing, I would know that she has the trait. But no, she will not suffer the way you've suffered, David.
So to just expand on that, and I'm moving a little bit out of my lane, so correct me, but if you're not born with the disease, you don't develop the disease later in life. Is that correct?
That is correct. It is not something you can acquire. It is genetic. You know, we cannot choose our parents. And so the thing is, you get the gene, whatever genes you get at birth are the genes that you have. There are some things on the horizon with sickle cell, such as a full bone marrow transplantation where we irradiate, you know, the bone marrow and then replace it with new bone marrow. And that is something that there has been some success with sickle cell warriors, but it is not something you can acquire. It's not like COVID, whereas you're next to somebody with it. Oh, I might get COVID. You know, it's not that. So it is nothing you can acquire. You're either born with it or you're not, and that's it.
Yeah, maybe that helps. We have about 10 minutes left. So did we have a question? Yes. In the audience. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if they can hear you online, so I'll come with my mic.
Okay. So I have one response to Basilisk Frank Ducky's comment with advocacy and sickle cell not being a part of the list of disabilities on the Americans with Disabilities Act. This is where you need to interact with your government. And I say that as an elected official. If they don't know,
They're not going to pass the policies that will get the protections you need. I say that is because I have a diagnosed learning disability. If it wasn't for my advocacy and having a great academic counselor, I would not get the accommodation support I would need to be successful in grad school. It's not that I can't learn, I learn differently. But my question for the group is, how can I, as a municipal government official, help advocate? Because some of the changes that we're looking for, it starts on the local level, and it works our way to the county, it works our way to the state, and then it works all the way up to the federal government level. So what can I do as an elected official on the local level to help advocate, to get more African Americans to understand and learn more about sickle cell anemia, and help get more people of color to donate blood to take care of those diseases that impact our community?
Thank you, and thank you for stepping up to the charge on this.
Looking at it from a municipal level, because I used to be involved in government, you could have sickle cell drives in your local municipalities. Many municipalities have health and awareness months, so you can look to do that as well. They may have a welfare department as well. I know Assemblywoman Verlina Reynolds-Jackson, who is a Delta, has various initiatives throughout the state for sickle cell to create awareness as it relates to that. So it's basically advocacy and holding your elected officials accountable and saying that this is something meaningful to our communities of color.
It just really goes back to education. I think we've been saying that. But I did have a question about our reluctance, if you will, to donate blood. Can the doctors on the panel tell us what that's like? Why are we so reluctant at times to show up? I'm very fortunate, again, to work in the school district I work in, and we have the young people come out. I think it's a chance for them to get out of class, but that's another conversation, and get snacks. But it's one of the most effective means I've ever seen that the young people show up in droves to do it, to volunteer. So tell us, what is our reluctance in the African American community to do that for ourselves?
I'll start off. So donating blood, the entire process takes about 1 hour. However, giving the blood, having the needle in your arm and throwing the blood out, that's only about 10 minutes. But there's processing and other things before you get to the gurney. When you get to the gurney, it's about 10 minutes, and then there's also recovery time. Yes, it is something that I love seeing young people volunteering with the Red Cross. As a matter of fact, my son, Brian Jr., is a new volunteer with the American Red Cross, and he's 17 years old. We went to the Red Cross during the summer. He was interested in doing some volunteer work there, and he starts this month with the local American Red Cross, and he's going to be trying to recruit other students to help out those in need. And it's very important that representation matters. So the more African Americans are there volunteering and getting the word out about getting the donating blood, because you have to be 17 years old to donate blood. So he's getting ready to get on the list for September 30th. He'll be on the gurney. I'm going to be on the gurney, but I have to wait till later so I can help those who may have, you know, there's usually nothing occurs, but sometimes a person feels lightheaded. So as a physician, I have to wait till everybody else is finished to get my blood drawn, so this way I can fully assist if needed. But generally speaking, that does not happen. But it takes only about 10 minutes as far as on the table. And you'll feel like a needle stick the same way as if you were in the hospital giving blood. I don't know if any of the other doctors want to comment.
I'll piggyback off of Dr. Roper. As representation does matter, and we represent about 2% of all the physicians in the United States. So when you see people who look like you who are volunteering and being active, I think it makes a difference for our young people and for the people who look like us, 100%. Another thing I'm going to touch on also is that having the knowledge and knowing the importance of blood drives. We all know about the history of the United States with all the different studies that have been done on our people, right, that affected our people negatively. and how we're looked at in general. So I think that's a big also reason why we don't get the participation from our community.
Thank you. We
I
have
agree
time
with
for one last question. Did you,
Sorry.
Doctor?
I was just saying I agree with everything that my colleagues just said.
All right, thank you. So we'll go to this woman over here for the final
Good
question.
afternoon, everyone. I just want to say how important this is to have this discussion this afternoon, because we as a people do not know enough about sickle cell anemia. I lived with a sickle cell child for 21 years, and I understand where David is coming from. I know what he's talking about. And it's just so important as a people. We don't know enough. Because when my daughter was diagnosed, I did not know, I never even heard of the disease before. What are you talking about? Did not know that my husband and I both had a trait, never heard about it. And it's just like, something we need to know as a people. So important. So important. And understand what David was talking about, crisis situations and all that, in and out the hospital. And just want to ask one question as also, you kind of answered about the age limit for giving donation of blood. There's no age limit, right?
It's recommended in the United States, blood donors are generally between 17 and up to about 70 years old. Okay. And again, as long as your medical conditions are under control, then you can donate even at 70 years old.
Thank you so much. And one other question. What's any new things coming out besides the bone marrow transplant for sickle cell people? Any other new progress as well have helped with cures and things like that?
I mean, I'm sorry to have to tell you, I don't think there's anything new on the horizon.
There's not enough being done about it. It's not enough being done. It's not enough as a people. It's not enough because only the affected people of color. They not. It's not enough being done. Yes. I've been through that. I know all about it.
Yes, ma'am.
In and out the hospital with my daughter, for 21 years. Like David said, I understand what he's saying. The young man she would lay down at night and wake up in a crisis. To the hospital we go, Jersey Shore University Medical Center. Some of the doctors didn't even know how to treat. They didn't know that much about sickle cell anemia. It's not enough being done because it don't affect the people of color. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Roper may have some information on any studies or anything.
Yes, there is a medication that is out called Oxbryta. Oxbryta has been a game changer for sickle cell warriors, in which they have fewer crises, fewer hemolysis, that's the breakdown of the red blood cells. So there is a new medication that is out. Oxbryta has been out now for about 2 to 3 years, and it has shown a lot of promise, and the studies are great. It's difficult to get because there's a lot of paperwork and things like that. It's not something that I could just give you a prescription and you walk into your local pharmacy and get. There's a process. It has to get mailed to your house. It's under a lot of regulation with that medication. And there are grants. Would it be affordable? It's very expensive. But there are generally grants that the person can qualify for. The physician, we fill out paperwork. Sometimes there might be finances that might have to be looked at because we don't want to give it. You don't want to give it out to someone who could afford it, or the insurance company. The way the insurance companies work, and so but it's made affordable. So it's something that if someone has sickle cell anemia, that is something that's on the horizon. That it's beyond the horizon. It is already available and approved by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration.
I will just add, we're pretty much at time also, but that at Hackensack University Medical Center, we have a sickle cell initiative there. I don't want to step out of my lane because I'm not a medical doctor. I can't tell you the medicine behind it, but there is a cure. And Dr. Gilio leads that up at Hackensack University Medical Center. I think there is an age limit also of who is a candidate to be a part of that program. Dr. Roper can follow up with you and put you in contact with that to share that information, because we do want to raise awareness around that. We can also have that information available at the blood drive as well. Yes, and so This has been just a wonderful discussion. I want to thank the Red Cross, Bill Phillips, and Dr. Roper for pulling this all together, the esteemed panelists, all of you that came out today to participate, and those who joined us virtually. Such an interactive audience you had been, and because of that, it has made for a more valuable and very dynamic discussion here today. At this time, first let me say it's been my honor, my privilege to moderate this discussion, and I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Roper at this time for some final remarks.
So again, thank you all very much. There's something I do want to highlight. There was something that Yoshi was speaking about as far as advocating for your children. Very, very important if you have children or grandchildren with sickle cell anemia. As it said, closed mouths do not get fed. You have to get past certain things and decide that, hey, I need to advocate for my child. David, I'm an advocate for you. You heard the social worker was speaking about what you can do while you're in the hospital. So many things have been going through my head with this, of what we can create, a consortium of perhaps African-American physicians that we take call, and all sickle cell patients throughout the United States, when they're in the hospital and they're not listening to you, you have someone that looks like you and that understands this condition that you can reach out to, and we would be on some sort of rotation. There are certain things that I'm thinking about there of developing. And the other thing is, with your job, and because the question went to Yoshi regarding missed days and things like that, with your job, there's something called FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act. It is a law. If a person has a chronic condition, you go to your doctor, that would be me, and I fill out that. That way, your job cannot discriminate against you. Does it mean that they won't? Some of them will. We understand that. But then you let me know what happens. I have my brother right here, Wayne Autry, is an esteemed attorney. The gentleman with the bow tie, he didn't get here early enough to tie my tie, but I will consult with him, and we'll put you on the right track to find someone to represent you if you feel that you've been discriminated against because of your condition, and we will get you justice. We will guarantee you that. And I'm sure not just the alphas, but I believe I speak for the entire Divine Nine. We have a talented pool of professionals that can assist and help you with any medical specialty, with any legal specialty. We are here to help. And so therefore, if you feel that you're not getting the attention, not every patient has my cell number. You have it. If you're there, David, and they're not, and you can't reach somebody, you shoot me a text, and I'll take care of it as much as I can. Okay? I will be that person to fight for you. Okay? And that's what we're all here for, and that's why we're doing this. And I believe Miss Danielle Jones, Councilwoman, you have a comment.
I just wanted to comment and piggyback what you were saying about the advocacy piece, because one of the things that people need to understand is if you look at the equal employment like EEOC, I forget what it stands for. It's difficult to bring a case to be brought to trial if it's not listed on the American for Disabilities Act, and that's where the advocacy piece comes in. If we don't advocate to get that added to ADA, David, if you're being discriminated at work, school, or things like that, you can file a case with the EEOC. They will investigate that claim, and then they come back and say, guess what? You can go to court because we found validity in this. But we can't do that if this is not listed on the ADA. And this is where we need to hold our elected officials accountable, and why we need to get more people that look like us in those rooms making decisions. Because if we can advocate, we can get that on the ADA. And that way, that gives another level of protection you have from discrimination.
Thank you. Again, thank you so much. We're late in the hour. I believe that there are refreshments. Yes, there are refreshments. I must say, I'm going to give the benediction. Let's see. And bless the food. Well, I'll ask if there's any ministers here. I'd rather them do it, but if not, I will. Again, thank you so very much. Please remember, today was only the pep rally. Game day is September the 30th. That is on Saturday, September the 30th. I implore each of you to try to get 3 to 5 friends to donate blood. It does not hurt. It's going to be 10 minutes. If you have friends between 17 and 70 years old and their conditions are stable or whatever, do this for David. Do this for all of our sickle cell warriors. Remember, self-identify as African American so that you can, so this way that blood is marked as readily available. In Divine Nine, I think we have our marching orders when we go to the State House. Each of us, this is something that should be at the top of the list, because if it is not at the top of the list for us, it will not be at the top of the list for anyone who is not affected by this. I hope you all enjoyed this. My team and I, we're going to be bringing back, be coming to you again with other health issues and everything. And again, I represent Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I'm the president of the Zeta Epsilon Lambda chapter, and we are here for you just like all of the other organizations. And again, give David a round of applause, please. I believe someone's asked me what time on that Saturday. So there's a QR code. It starts at 10 a.m. up until about 2 p.m. However, on the QR code, when you register, you will get a time. So this way, we don't want people to come here at 10 o'clock and they're not going to get their blood drawn until 2 o'clock because we'll have people leaving. So you pick which time. There's time slots there. And so we do ask that the person arrives about 15 to 20 minutes before you are scheduled to be on the gurney. So we're asking people to sign up and show up. Please do not sign up and take a slot and then let something else take precedence over this. This has to be important to our community for us to help sickle cell warriors. Again, it must be important to us. Please sign up and show up. Do not chicken out for this right here. And I'm asking each of you to get 5 friends. And I'm saying 5 now because 2 may not show up. Each of you get 5 friends. Everyone here should be on that gurney, and I'm going to be looking. My son took pictures, so I know everybody who's here. I'm going to be looking on September 30th. Please self-identify. Some people may not know what a QR code is. QR code is this fancy little square on the bottom of the flyer in which you take your phone, your smartphone, and you'll put it on photo as if you're taking a picture. You don't take the picture of it, you just scan it. And then you'll see a little gold bar that comes up and says connect. And when you push connect, it'll take you directly to the site in order to register. That's the sign up part. And then you must show up. Dr. Avania?
I just wanted to emphasize to show up on time and not CP time.
There you go. That is critical for your appointment. That's where we're asking you to show up 15 minutes early. When you sign up, show up 15 minutes early to make so this way they know that you're there in order to get your blood drawn. Bill, are you coming to do the benediction? Oh, there's a website. And there's also a website, so anyone who may not have a smartphone that can pick up the QR code, if people want to get their pens out, and we will have this back there with the refreshments as well. The website is www.redcrossblood.org, and then you'll have to go over to the site is St. Stephen's AMEZ Church in Asbury Park, and the date is Saturday, September the 30th of this year. Okay, Saturday, September the 30th. We purposefully did not make it on next Saturday because that's the HBCU football game, which I'm at every year. So therefore, we made it after that game, 2 weeks later, and so we expect to see you here. We expect to see more people here than at the tailgate party there because this is about life. We're asking you, donate blood, donate life. Okay, so I'm going to end with the benediction and blessing the food. Reverend Gertie Washington. We have someone who's raised their hand to do the benediction. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. My old friend. If you could say the benediction and bless the food for us, please.
Certainly. Let us pray. God, we are grateful to you for having had this very fruitful and educational seminar. And we pray that as we leave this place that we will share it with others so that our information services will grow and expand and we will gain the necessary knowledge. And now, Lord, we ask that you will be with us as we leave this place. And before we leave, we ask that you will bless the food that has been provided for the occasion, that you will bless it to your use and us to our service. We thank you, we give you the glory, the honor, and the praise. And now may we leave in peace in Jesus. And let us all say amen.
Amen. Amen. God bless you. Remember, donate blood, donate life, sign up, and show up for our sickle cell warriors. If it's not important to us, it will never be important to anyone else. Yes, members of the Divine Nine, there's going to be a picture. So if you could stay here and don't rush back there to